Here's the reality most people don't openly talk about. When someone keeps occupying your thoughts and you can't seem to stop thinking about him, there's already something active between you and him. Not in a fantasy or exaggerated way, but in a very real human experience of emotional and mental connection that people often feel but struggle to explain. And this isn't about giving you false comfort. It's about understanding what's actually happening when someone takes up that much space in your mind. You notice it in everyday moments. He appears in your thoughts while you're doing simple things like eating or working. Something reminds you of him, and suddenly he's there again. You try to shift your attention elsewhere, but it keeps circling back no matter how hard you resist. That's when doubt starts creeping in, and you begin questioning yourself, wondering if you're overthinking or imagining things, and whether he is completely unaffected while you feel stuck in it. He doesn't just exist in your mind without any response on the other side. When your thoughts keep returning to someone with that kind of intensity, it creates a strong emotional focus that feels almost like a connection line between two people. Many people have experienced moments where they think of someone, and that person suddenly reaches out or shows up shortly after. And while life isn't always that direct, it speaks to how deeply our attention and emotions can tie us to others. When your mind keeps replaying conversations, memories, and questions about him, that focus becomes constant energy directed toward one person. And even if he isn't consciously aware of it, he can still experience it as sudden thoughts, emotional shifts, or an unexplained urge to check on you or reach out. It may not be logical or easy to explain, but that sense of presence can still be felt. And that leads me to the next thing. He's thinking about you more than he used to, and it's not as random as it might seem. When someone takes up a lot of space in your mind, it often means there's been a shift in attention between both people. Your thoughts about him don't just sit quietly in your head. They keep returning, and that constant focus naturally brings his name, his face, and his presence into your mental space again and again. In the middle of normal life, while eating, working, or scrolling, he can suddenly appear in your thoughts too. Maybe he remembers something you said, an old conversation, a message thread, or a moment you shared. He might even find himself wondering what you're doing, who you're with, or whether you're thinking about him the same way. It can feel unexpected, like your presence just shows up in his mind without warning. This creates a back and forth pattern where attention keeps circling between both of you. When you think about him repeatedly, it strengthens how often he appears in your awareness, and the same can start happening on his side. He might be busy with work, friends, or daily life, but still get random moments where you pop into his head. In those moments, he pauses, reflects, and sometimes even feels a shift in mood without fully understanding why. It's not something he consciously controls. It's just how human memory and emotional association work when someone has been significant in your life. Over time, your presence becomes tied to certain feelings, memories, and mental triggers, so anything familiar can bring you back into his thoughts without effort. You also become someone he compares other experiences to, even if he doesn't realize it. When someone has had a strong emotional impact, their memory doesn't just stay as a simple recollection, it turns into a reference point. So if he interacts with new people or situations, there may be moments where he unconsciously measures them against what he remembers about you. Not because others are lacking, but because your presence is still emotionally active in his memory. That's why thoughts of you don't stay shallow or brief. They can turn into deeper reflections where he actually pauses and thinks about what you meant to him, what changed, or what he feels now. At the same time, when someone is mentally focused on another person, their emotional state can subtly shift. Thinking about you can bring comfort one moment and restlessness the next, not because anything external is happening, but because internal associations are being triggered. He might feel distracted, reflective, or even slightly unsettled at times without knowing why. And because these shifts don't have an obvious cause, it can leave him quietly wondering what's going on in his mind. The truth is, repeated thoughts about someone naturally influence mood, focus, and emotional tone. even if the person doesn't consciously connect those changes to you. Another thing that starts happening is association. The mind begins linking everyday things back to you without effort. A song, a place, a random object, or even a passing moment can suddenly trigger your image in his head. This isn't something he controls. It happens because repeated attention builds strong mental connections. Over time, your presence becomes tied to familiar patterns, so reminders appear everywhere in small, unexpected ways. It can feel like you're showing up in different parts of his day, not because you're physically there, but because his mind has stored you in so many emotional and sensory connections that ordinary things keep bringing you back into focus. When this keeps happening, it can start to feel like a loop that feeds itself. You think about him, and because your attention stays fixed on him so often, he begins to appear in your mind more frequently too. Then something in your environment, something small and ordinary, reminds you of him again, and that memory pulls you right back in. It feels continuous, like there's no real pause in between. And when you're in that state, it's easy to assume the same thing must be happening on his side. Maybe he sees a scene in a movie that reminds him of you. Maybe he walks past something you once liked, or hears a joke that feels like something you would have said. Over time, you stop feeling like just a memory to him and start feeling like part of how he interprets everyday life. And once someone becomes mentally linked to that level, those associations don't just disappear quickly, they tend to linger and resurface in unexpected moments. In the same way, it can start to feel like there's a push and pull toward contact, like an urge that keeps showing up without warning. You might imagine him wanting to reach out but hesitating, and in that imagined space, it seems like he's picking up his phone, typing messages, deleting them, or checking old conversations just to reconnect somehow. Whether or not he actually acts on it, the idea here is that the thought of communication doesn't stay simple. It becomes something he turns over repeatedly in his mind. That overthinking can make everything feel heavier because even silence starts to feel active, like something is building without resolution. And when someone is mentally preoccupied like that, even small impulses can feel significant, even if they never turn into action. At the same time, when a person's attention keeps circling back to one individual, their focus in other areas can start to feel less steady. It's not unusual for someone to become more distracted, more spaced out, or more lost in thought when something is occupying their mind repeatedly. From the outside, it might look like they're not fully present, like they're drifting during conversations or losing focus during routine tasks. And internally, that experience can feel like a constant background noise that doesn't fully go away. The more often a thought returns, the more it interrupts whatever else they're trying to concentrate on, until it becomes a familiar mental pattern they can't easily explain. Over time, this kind of mental repetition can also lead to reflection. When someone keeps appearing in your thoughts, it naturally raises questions about why, what they mean to you, why the connection feels persistent, and what it represents emotionally. The mind starts trying to categorize the experience, whether it's something casual, something unfinished, or something more significant. That questioning doesn't automatically lead to any immediate action or dramatic change, but it does shift how that person is seen internally. They're no longer just part of the background of memory. They become something the mind actively examines. And once someone reaches that point of reflection, the way they relate to you mentally is already different from before, because now you exist in their awareness in a more conscious and considered way. And that's important because when someone starts asking questions, it usually leads them somewhere. Not always immediately, but over time, curiosity turns into reflection, and reflection can eventually lead to action. He might even talk about you to people close to him in a subtle way, not openly confessing anything, but bringing you up in conversation just to make sense of his thoughts, asking things like what others think about you, or whether you might feel the same, or simply mentioning something you said or did. That's often how people try to process emotions they don't fully understand yet, by sounding them out indirectly through others. And at the same time, he might also pull back a little. Not because the connection isn't there, but because he's trying to sort through what he's feeling internally. When emotions become unclear or intense, people often need space, not distance from care, but space for clarity. So what does all of this actually mean for you? It means there's a lot happening beneath the surface, but it doesn't automatically translate into immediate outcomes or clear direction. Real life isn't linear. Feelings don't always move at the same speed for both people, and even when there's mutual thought or emotional weight, timing, fear, personal history, and life circumstances all play a role in what happens next. So while it may feel intense and meaningful, it doesn't guarantee a specific result right away. What it does mean, however, is that you're not experiencing this alone. There's an emotional loop here where both sides are carrying awareness of each other in different ways, even if it's not visible on the surface. And recognizing that can help you stop turning it into self-blame or confusion. What matters most now is how you respond to it. First, give yourself permission to stop judging your thoughts. Thinking about someone a lot doesn't make you weak or too much. It's a normal human response when something feels emotionally significant. Second, don't ignore your intuition completely. Sometimes your mind picks up on emotional signals before you can logically explain them, even if the interpretation needs balance. Third, allow time to do its part. People don't always reach clarity at the same pace, and forcing answers too early usually creates more confusion than resolution. And finally, keep your life moving forward. Don't let everything pause around one person. Growth, routine, experiences, and self-focus don't push someone away. They strengthen your emotional center, which helps you stay grounded regardless of what the other person does. At the end of the day, what you're feeling feels strong because it is strong. And what he's going through in his own way is part of that same emotional experience playing out differently on his side. But none of it replaces real communication, real decisions, or real actions when the time comes. So instead of trying to force certainty right now, focus on staying steady within yourself. If there's something between you two, time and clarity will reveal it naturally. And if there isn't, time will also make that clear. Either way, you don't lose yourself in the process. So breathe a little, stay patient with what you don't fully understand yet, and keep showing up for your own life. Whatever is real will find its way into clarity on its own. Not through overthinking, but through time, experience, and honest action. A more grounded way to understand this is that strong, repetitive thoughts about someone usually say more about your emotional state than about any direct two-way signal between you. When a person occupies your mind a lot, your brain is doing what it naturally does with emotionally charged memories. It keeps bringing them back because they feel important, unresolved, or unfinished. The mind doesn't always prioritize logic. It prioritizes emotional significance. So even small reminders can trigger a full mental replay, especially if there was connection, attraction, uncertainty, or unanswered questions involved. On the other side, the same principle applies to him, but not because your thoughts are somehow reaching him like a signal. Instead, if you were meaningful to him, his brain also stores you in emotional memory networks. That means certain triggers in his day, places, music, habits, conversations can bring you back into his awareness. The key point is that this is how memory and association work in both directions independently, not necessarily a synchronized loop between two people. It can feel linked because both people are experiencing similar patterns, but the source is internal processing, not a shared energetic system controlling both minds. What often gets misunderstood in situations like this is how frequency of thought gets interpreted. Thinking about someone more doesn't automatically mean they are thinking about you at the exact same rate or moment. Human attention is highly context-driven. If he is focused on work, social life, stress, or personal goals, his mental space is occupied differently, even if your memory still exists in the background. And similarly, your mind might be more emotionally tuned into the connection, which is why it feels louder and more constant for you. That imbalance is what creates the feeling that something mutual must be happening at the same intensity. Another important layer is uncertainty. When there is no clear closure or clear communication, the brain tends to keep the topic open. Open loops are mentally sticky. They keep resurfacing because the mind is trying to resolve them. That's why you replay conversations, analyze meanings, and imagine scenarios. It's not a sign that something external is actively happening in real time. It's your brain trying to find emotional resolution. If the situation were fully clear, even if the outcome wasn't what you wanted, the thoughts would usually decrease over time. People also tend to overinterpret coincidences during emotional focus. When you are thinking about someone a lot, your attention becomes selective. You notice anything related to them more easily, and it starts to feel like the world is pointing toward that person. But that's actually your attention filtering reality, not reality responding back. The same applies to the other person if they are also emotionally activated. It feels like mirroring, but it's really two separate minds highlighting similar categories of information because of emotional relevance. As for the idea of reaching out, that part is more human and psychological than mysterious. When someone is unsure, they often delay action not because of a strong, unseen pull, but because of hesitation, ego, fear of rejection, or not knowing what outcome they want. People can think about reaching out many times without acting on it, and that internal conflict can repeat for a long time. So if someone hasn't contacted you, it doesn't necessarily mean intensity is building toward action. It may simply mean indecision is ongoing. The most stabilizing perspective is to separate what you feel internally from what you assume is happening externally. Your thoughts and emotions are real experiences, but they are not always accurate indicators of another person's current mental state. And the less you rely on interpretation and the more you rely on clear communication and real-world behavior, the more grounded you stay. At the end of the day, what matters most is not whether someone is thinking about you in a mirrored way, but whether there is consistent action, clarity, and effort in reality. Thoughts can exist without direction, feelings can exist without movement, and real connection is only confirmed through what people choose to do, not what might be happening silently in their minds. When you stay in this kind of mental loop for a while, something subtle starts happening. Your brain begins treating the person like a habit thought. That means they don't just appear because of real interactions anymore, but because your mind has built a pathway that automatically returns to them. It's similar to how a song gets stuck in your head, not because it's playing somewhere in the world, but because your brain keeps replaying it internally. The more emotionally charged the connection feels, the stronger that pathway becomes. So even silence or distance doesn't remove the pattern. It just means your mind keeps filling in the gaps on its own. This is also why the experience can feel mutual, even when nothing is being directly communicated. Your mind generates meaning to reduce uncertainty. It takes fragments, memories, timing, coincidences, emotional spikes, and tries to build a story that feels complete. If someone is important to you emotionally, your brain will naturally assume there is significance behind every reminder involving them. That doesn't mean the interpretation is accurate. It means your mind is trying to create emotional stability in a situation that feels unresolved. On the other side, if he also thinks about you sometimes, the experience would still be completely separate. He would not be receiving your thoughts, but his own memory system would activate based on his personal triggers. If something reminded him of you, he might think of you briefly, then return to whatever he was doing. The intensity, duration, and meaning of those thoughts would depend entirely on his emotional investment, current life focus, and personality, not on a shared invisible loop between two minds. A big part of what keeps people stuck in this topic is the need for certainty. The brain dislikes ambiguity, especially in emotional situations. So instead of accepting, "I don't know what he is thinking," it tries to replace uncertainty with a story that feels more emotionally satisfying. That's where ideas like constant mutual thinking or synchronized feelings become appealing. They reduce confusion. But emotionally comforting explanations are not always psychologically accurate ones. Another thing that happens is emotional projection. When you feel something strongly, your mind assumes a similar level of intensity exists on the other side because that balance feels fair. If you are thinking about him constantly, it feels natural to believe he must be thinking about you just as much. But human attention doesn't distribute evenly like that. People can matter deeply in memory while still not occupying equal mental space at the same time. There's also a difference between emotional imprint and active focus. Someone can leave an emotional imprint on your mind, meaning they can be remembered easily and associated with feelings without being actively thought about all day. Most real-life connections function like that over time. They don't disappear, but they also don't stay constantly active unless something is reinforcing them, like contact, interaction, or unresolved emotional tension. What makes this even more intense is when there was inconsistency, uncertainty, or lack of closure. The brain tends to loop more around situations it cannot fully categorize. Clear endings are easier to process than unclear pauses. So instead of fading, the person becomes a return point in your thoughts whenever your mind is idle, emotional, or reflective. That's why it can feel persistent even without ongoing contact. At a deeper level, the most important thing to understand is that thoughts are not proof of connection. They are proof of attention. Attention can be influenced by emotion, curiosity, memory, habit, and imagination, but it doesn't automatically translate into a shared psychological experience between two people. Real connection is measured in behavior, consistency, communication, and choice over time. When you start separating what is happening inside your mind from what is actually happening between two people in reality, the experience becomes clearer. You can still feel strongly, still care, still think about someone, but without needing to assume a mirrored internal world on their side. That shift is what slowly breaks the loop, because your mind stops trying to solve uncertainty through imagination and starts returning focus back to your own life and what is actually observable. In the end, what this all really comes down to is not a hidden connection or an invisible exchange of thoughts, but the way your mind responds when someone becomes emotionally important to you. When a person leaves a strong impression, especially in situations that feel unfinished, uncertain, or emotionally charged, your brain doesn't just store them as a simple memory. It keeps them active in the background, bringing them forward again and again because it hasn't fully categorized the experience as complete. That's why the thoughts return even when you don't want them to. It's not a sign that something supernatural is happening between two minds, but a sign that your emotional system is still trying to make sense of something that felt significant to you. What often makes this even harder is the feeling of ambiguity. When there is no clear ending, no clear answer, and no clear communication, the mind naturally fills in the blanks. It starts building narratives, reading meaning into coincidences, and searching for patterns that can make the situation feel more understandable. This is where the experience can start to feel mutual, as if both people are constantly tuned into each other. But in reality, what is happening is two separate minds independently processing their own memories, emotions, and attention in different ways. One person's intensity does not automatically reflect the other person's internal state, even if it feels emotionally aligned from your perspective. And finally, what this really teaches is something deeper about attachment and awareness. When someone has a strong presence in your mind, it's usually pointing back to something inside you. Unfinished emotions, unmet needs, curiosity, or simply the natural impact of connection. The goal is not to force yourself to stop thinking or to deny what you feel, but to understand it clearly enough that it no longer confuses you, because clarity changes everything. It turns overwhelming thoughts into understandable patterns, and it brings you back into control of where your attention goes. So the real conclusion is simple. What you are experiencing is a powerful example of how human attention and emotion work, not proof of a shared mental connection. And once you see it for what it is, you're no longer trapped inside the story your mind is trying to build. You can still care, still remember, still feel, but with a calmer understanding that your thoughts belong to you and your life is not waiting on someone else's invisible reaction.